Moving away from the visual elements in film structure, we can now consider sound. For the purpose of analysing narrative form, we describe events taking place in the story world as diegetic, and those that do not as non-diegetic. For this reason, diegetic sound is sound that has a source in the story world. The words spoken by the characters, sounds made by objects in the story, and music represented as coming from instruments in the story space are all diegetic sounds. Diegetic sound is often hard to notice as such. It may seem to come naturally from the world of the film. Alternatively, there is non-diegetic sound, which is represented as coming from a source outside the story world. Music added to enhance the film's action is the most common type of non-diegetic sound. When orchestral music washes over a scene, we do not expect to see the New York Philharmonic sitting in the corner performing. Viewers understand that movie music is a convention and does not issue from the world of the story itself. The same holds true for the so-called omniscient narrator, the disembodied voice that gives us information but does not belong to any of the characters in the film necessarily. Non-diegetic sound effects are also possible. If an effect is placed on an object or scene that does not carry a real-world representation, then it is considered non-diegetic. Diegetic-based sound effects are highly common in film and make up part of the editing and finalization processes of filmmaking. These effects could include a character's footsteps and sounds of their other actions, the typical noises of their environment, such as traffic, machinery, other people who form part of a crowd or workplace scene, electronic media, birds and animals. Another crucial aspect of a film's sound is its music soundtrack. In many instances, a film's soundtrack can often be just as successful and profitable within popular culture as the film itself. Music contributes significantly to the mood of a film. The film's historical and cultural setting can be partly established by the type of music included on the soundtrack. Music can also contribute to the film's narrative by anticipating the nature of events, good or bad, that are about to happen, or by accompanying a character in such a way as to suggest that character's role in the narrative, hero, villain, etc. The movie soundtrack is also important in matching the film with its target audience, and is often used as part of the promotional package for the film. Moving along, the narrative structure of a film can be analysed in much the same way as that of a novel or short story. However, there is a particular structure adopted by many Hollywood films, including films from the past as well as contemporary releases. Classic Hollywood narrative structure includes and defines the conventions that most Hollywood films follow. The main elements are: the main character is known as the protagonist, whose actions drive the narrative forward. The protagonist is motivated by their desire to achieve a goal. One or more obstacles stand in the way of the protagonist achieving their goal. These obstacles create conflict. The protagonist must change in some way in order to overcome the obstacles in the film's resolution. In the film's resolution itself, the protagonist either achieves their goals or fails to achieve it. In both cases, the questions and tensions generated by the conflict are in some way answered and resolved. Of course, many novels could be analysed in terms of the classic Hollywood narrative structure. They also feature protagonists, conflict and resolutions. However, literary fiction is generally much less narrative-driven than Hollywood cinema. The smooth plot development from conflict to change to resolution will rarely be as evident in a novel by Jane Austen or Virginia Woolf, for example, in comparison to a James Cameron blockbuster such as Avatar. In the same vein, we shouldn't take this classic Hollywood narrative structure as being applicable to every film. Many films, especially art house films, deliberately resist the conventions of the classical Hollywood narrative. There might not be an obvious central character, for example. The film could explore several interlinking relationships rather than one or two main figures. The protagonist might not have a clear goal that they seek to achieve. Further, the film's ending might be open-ended or ambiguous rather than generating a strong sense of closure and finality. Knowing the main terms and elements of the classic Hollywood structure will help you to discuss not only the films that use it, but also those that resist or subvert its conventions, since you'll be able to clearly identify the elements that are altered or left out. Lastly, in narrative fiction, there are conventions for representing different points of view. First-person and third-person narrative voices, quotation marks for direct speech, etc. Film too carries with it conventions for discussing point of view. The main techniques involve a combination of sound and visual language to give the audience a multifaceted view of the world of the film. This usually incorporates the perspective of an omniscient observer. We are able to see the broad picture, including the character's larger context, their home, the city, culture, and we are able to move freely in and out of various locations. With the perspective of an invisible observer, we are able to see and hear everything that is taking place within a location as if we are present, commonly known as being a fly on the wall. The perspective of a character allows the audience to experience events from that character's point of view and know how they are thinking and feeling. There are a variety of elements of sound and vision that can produce each of these narrative viewpoints. A narrative voiceover tells the audience directly about events being depicted by the film. It functions as an equivalent to a first-person narrative voice in narrative fiction, although in film we are usually able to observe the action from a more detached external perspective than the inherently subjective viewpoint of a first-person narrative in a novel or short story. A voiceover gives us access to information that is not known by all the characters. This heightens our awareness of what is at stake and quickly draws us into the world of the film. The narrator is often the film's protagonist. This provides us with greater insight into their attitudes, feelings, and motivations. When the narrator is also a character in the film, the audience is encouraged to see the events of the film from that character's perspective. We have already discussed how camera distance and framing are integral visual elements of a film. How close or distant the camera is from the characters also influences whether we see and hear the events of the film from their point of view or not. Films can also achieve the effect of a first-person or third-person limited narrative perspective through point of view shots. This means that we see and hear what a character sees and hears. When the editor links together different point of view shots showing the viewpoints of two characters, we continually alternate between the perspectives of those two characters. This is comparable in certain respects to the effect of a third-person limited narrative in a novel that shifts between the characters' perspectives. Taken to its extreme, point of view shots can give us the impression that we are looking through the character's eyes, as if we are inside that character's head. This is known as a mentally subjective view and is the equivalent of a first-person narrator in narrative fiction. So, in review, we have considered 4 different areas of film structure: visual elements, sound, narrative structure, and finally, point of view. Each area has different facets within film, which you can comment upon. It is important that, whilst constructing a review of a film, you consider each of these areas and the different layers therein, in order to present a thorough analysis of the text itself.